This is our review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This review is post finishing the game. We dropped about 130 or more hours into the game, and as opposed to our first rant, which is sadly accurate of what's to come in this review, it was only done up until Cosmo Canyon. It was sort of a sad joke but truth rant. This, however, is going to be just truth bombs. We're going to deep dive into everything about 7 Rebirth, minus the story, which obviously it's going to be good or bad depending on who you ask. It's kind of wild, but we're not going to do any spoilers. This is coming from the perspective of a long-time overall Final Fantasy fan. I've been a big fan of 7 in general, like most Final Fantasy fans are, and I'm also a huge fan of Remake, and we've done multiple playthroughs of it, normal and hard modes both. Also, before we played Rebirth, we did a Remake playthrough completely, just so we could get a solid feel and comparison of what's to come and what the differences would be. I would also like to point out this is my very first review, official review of a video game, and I want to be as honest and truthful about every game that I review and overlook as possible. So it's going to be a little negative at times, but we're also going to throw in positives, don't worry. Our aim here is honesty. So without further ado, let's get started.
It's all good. Ready, set, let's do this thing.
The number one thing I get from a game instantly is how it feels, how it controls. How a game feels to play from the gate is very indicative of how I'm going to rate it. If it feels bad, it's probably going to be awful. There's plenty of exceptions to this rule, but that's generally how I go by my reviews here. Rebirth feels jank. The janky feel of your characters in this game is absolutely awful at times. From snap jumping to just feeling out of control at times on your chocobo. In Remake, the controls weren't really great, but the amount of snap jank feel that you get in Rebirth, it just feels absolutely absurd at times. It actually feels awful to play at times, particularly in the open world where you're traversing like vertically, up and down hills and whatnot, over a fence or over anything. It just feels bad. There's no real way to put it. It just feels bad. Now, to be fair, that's just the control in the open world. In combat, there's positives and negatives. Being able to actively get into the air, for example, is a huge bonus. The amount of fights that you can actively be juggled in, it just feels pretty insane at times, and we haven't even touched hard mode in Rebirth yet. So much so that once I get hit in a battle, I just swap my character. Speaking of swapping your character, the AI doesn't even feel good in this game. The AI is pretty piss poor in how you can just manipulate your target. If you want your enemies to spread out, pick a ranged character. Pick Barrett. Pick, Yuffie or Aerith. Just for a few seconds, and then fan back to your melee character when they're attacking or charging an ability or a spell on that ranged character. I'm not sure what they did with the AI, but the Remake AI just felt better than Rebirth. Remake just felt better in combat overall. I can't quite put my finger on it, but Remake combat, for me at least, felt very deliberate, very grounded, and just less floaty in general. Rebirth had so many moments that were just uncontrollable. Using synergies, for instance. Your characters are still vulnerable to damage, as they should be, and the animations of synergy attacks are so sped up to compensate somewhat for it, it just looks weird. And you better make sure that you're in a safe spot when you do use a synergy attack. There were so many times, particularly in at the end of the game, I would go to pull off a synergy attack and nearly get game overed for it. There was one time in particular at the very end where I pulled off a synergy attack. There was an AoE move that got casted after I did the synergy attack and nearly killed both of my characters. So it was, it wasn't fun. It's just the amount of uncontrollable chaos is just annoying. It's not really hard to compensate for, but it also makes it just less fun overall. It didn't feel like the worst game I've ever played in combat. It was fairly good overall, but just the amount of uncontrollable mess at times, it just got really annoying and wasn't fun. Really hope you enjoyed watching that cutscene of seeing the tower animation go off and among other things. The biggest disappointment in this game is the open world. The open world is a lie. It's not even open world, it's open region. There's honestly not even a whole lot going on in the open region exploration-wise. It's an Ubisoft checklist of things to do. If you like Far Cry, you'll like this shit. Every region is roughly the same checklist. You do your towers, you do your monster variants, you find a life spring, you chase some Moogles, you do some random crap, and then you get a chocobo for the region. Then there's also the proto-relic stuff, which is the only thing that changes per region as far as the checklist goes, and that's honestly just roughly 4 mini-games essentially. We'll swing back around to mini-games in a second, we'll get to that pile, but let's get back to the open world. Open region, I'm sorry. The open regions have absolutely nothing to explore. Trust me, I've tried. You're gonna find some treasure sections, which literally tell you 0 out of 2 or 0 out of 3 treasures in the area, but rarely will you find anything outside of a potion or maybe some materials in the open regions. Now don't get me wrong, I know that every chest can't be super great or anything, but hardly any of the chests that you get outside of the purple gear chests get you excited. Remake suffered the same problem. There's armor and stuff that you can create, but the game gatekeeps you pretty hard with region-locked materials. Now I get it, it's so you don't get super overpowered early on, so it's understandable. But it's also very boring, and it's very, very on rails. Now, I get it. People are like, well, this is the design of the game. Well, if that's the case, the design is boring. Chocobos are a form of travel. Each region has their own specific chocobo with different abilities. You got wall climbing, you got water spouting, you got mushroom bouncing. You have to catch each chocobo in a very specific way. Typically, you're hiding behind a minecart or something. It's a mini game practically. No, don't get me wrong. We're going to get to mini games soon. We're getting there. Catching chocobos, though, it just consists of throwing rocks, moving minecarts to stay hidden from the watch-out chocobos until you can sneak up on your prize chocobo. It's as dumb as it sounds, and it's not fun after the first round. It gets very old, very fast, very boring. Again, one of the most bland and boring open worlds I've ever played, but was it pretty? Yeah, of course. The world looked gorgeous. Was it soulless? Absolutely. There was nothing going on in this world. There was some backstory and whatnot. The added backstory for the regions was really great for the fans of the series. I enjoyed that. But would it have killed them to add a few nooks, a few crannies here and there, maybe some caves or something? And I understand there are a few caves here and there, but there's nothing in them for the most part. You might find a materia in the grasslands areas, like if you wander in a cave, there's like a materia somewhere there. That was cool. Give us more of that. I don't know, just some added materia or anything other than potions. Everything just feels so on rails, down to the actual weapons that you find. The fanboy excuse for that is by design. The gamer excuse for that is bad. So the overworld was very disappointing to me. I don't know. It was gorgeous, it was beautiful, but honestly, there just wasn't a whole lot going on. And it also harkens back to the control of the game, just felt kind of jank at times. But the open world was just, it felt like a lie.
auditorium.
Great.
Though, I'm sorry to say, we aren't open quite yet, and I'm not even sure when we will be. Those Mooglets are refusing to come back, and we can't do business without them, Kupo. Actually, maybe you wouldn't mind helping? The Mooglets are having too much fun.
Get a nice long look at this abomination. You're going to see this quite a bit in your playthrough. I hope you enjoy it. Regardless, here we go. Minigames. Here's the big fun one. This is the #1 complaint that I got from viewers while live streaming this game. Every single time they tuned in, we were doing a minigame. I know it's not just me as well. I've caught some of the other big shill streamers as well, and it was all the exact same thing. If you're not grinding away Chadley VR missions, which actually had some reward to it, so it wasn't as bad as the mini games, but it was also pretty damn boring to do, they were doing something that wasn't the actual game. Now, before we move forward, let's just count a number of quote-unquote totally skippable content in the game in the form of mini games and side quests. First off, we got roughly 36 side quests. Some of these involve tedious mini games, which we'll try to include on our list. I'm probably going to miss a few, so let me know if I've missed any. There's an actual ton of these things in this game. Also, I would love for you to count along with me the amount of these things. Literally, just count with me here. #1, Queen's Blood. #2, catching chocobos, 1 per region. Different minigame each time. #3, Chocobo Bill's Basics course, where you have to run around in a circle to learn how to move jankily. #4, Summoning Synchronization. You got to do this 3 times per region. #5, Catching Moogles, 1 time per region. #6, Taking Pictures, 1 time per region. #7, Life Springs, 4 to 6 times per region. #8, Fort Condor, 4 to 8 times, depending if you do hard mode or not. #9, Frog Jump. #10, the Dolphin Course. #11, the Junon Parade, QTEs. #12, driving a Segway. #13, Pirate Rampage. #14, Run Wild. #15, Cactuar Capers, taking pictures of paintings. #16, Piano. #17, Wheelie Rendezvous, parking color coordinated segways. #18, Crunch Off. #19, Minecart Minigame. #20, G-Bike Minigame. Number 21, Rock'em Sock 3D Brawler. Number 22, Galactic Saviors. Number 23, the Coliseum Fights. Number 24, Swindling Seminar. Number 25, Beast Battleground. Number 26, Desert Rush. Number 27, Chocobo Races. Over 20 races to do, if not more. Number 28, Minecart minigame, but in a boss fight. Number 29, the Kid G Trials. You have to do this 4 times. Number 30, the Cockbox Diaries. Number 31, Pulling Shrooms. Number 32, Glide de Chocobo. Number 33, Gears and Gambits, 4 to 8 times, depending on if you want to do hard mode or not. Number 34, Absence of a Game, sign. Number 35, it's capturing a Chocobo, but specifically Selena. Just look at how bad this is. Number 36, Kate Sith Box Toss. Number 37, Taking Red 13's Picture. And number 38, the Play QTE event. So fun. Now, that's not all the mini games. I'm excluding the ones that I didn't do. There's some kind of like pirate treasure map thing and some other things at the end of the game that I didn't even touch because I was so ready to end it that I didn't do it. But you get the idea. You see the problem here? Do you see the problem here? That's not even including the mini games or the mini games that you're required to do. And what I'm talking about is moving a vacuum cleaner to clean up a Mako spill before you can proceed in some dungeons. Puzzling indeed, I know. These aren't bad, but they're just added fluff, and they pad out the game. Just because you're doing them so many times throughout each dungeon, you're moving a box, you're doing this, you're doing that, and it's not that big of a thing on its own, but when you add it up over time, it just adds more and more fluff to the game. Now, I get it. The common rebuke is they're skippable. You don't have to do all of them. Well, yes, most of these are skippable. On a first-time playthrough, do you try to skip as much quote-unquote content as possible? Or do you try to get every bit of your $70 to $300 whatever dollars worth of it? I, for one, I try my best to do everything that I possibly can, just so I can have a very educated and experienced thought on a play or on a game. Here's my conclusion after doing almost every bit of the minigame and side quest stuff that this game has to offer. I feel like Rebirth, if you just gung-ho the story, is roughly a 30 to 50 hour game. That's respectable. Obviously, it depends on your struggles and how much you're exploring that you're doing. But, you know, that's basically the story content, I believe. Now, if you add up the mini games to like 100% the game, including the same mini games multiple times that you're going to be doing for the hard modes and all that, you're easily looking over 100 plus hours of mini games. Now, let that sink in real quick. That's over half the game. That's over half the time you're going to be spending in the game doing not the game, but mini games. 30 to 50 hours of an actual game, that's pretty good. That's normal for a JRPG, mostly. You know, DQ11 kind of spits in the face of that, but we'll digress. The extra 50 hours of mini games, though, and that seems fine, right? Here's my issue with these mini games. Sure, they're skippable. Don't like it, don't do it, great. I get that. But here's my question. How much better could Rebirth have been if the amount of effort that was put into doing mundane mini games, like parking segways or, you know, any of that junk, was actually put into the game itself? Better exploration, more flavor on the map. I don't know. Maybe not having the same copy-paste segments like grabbing towers, doing Moogles, monster variants. Maybe flesh that out a little bit different. I just can't help but be curious how much time and resources went into creating half of these mini games, which add absolutely nothing to the game. Just frustration, and hey, don't get me wrong, some of these mini games were fun. I enjoyed Fort Condor. I enjoyed Gambits and whatnot it's called, Gears and Gambits. Some of the mini games I really did enjoy, and that's fine. Some of them I didn't enjoy. That's fine as well. But the amount of crap in this game overshadows the game itself. I don't know. Maybe they could have fleshed out more Zack sequences or something. They could have done something else. I just can't help but think that. Now, I know I touched on this as well earlier, but since we're on the topic of content, heavy quotations, you have like 50 Chadley VR missions. I gotta throw this in there too. They're literally some of the most boring content, quote unquote, in the game. Especially if you let the missions pile up on you. You need to do like 7+ in a row, and like that's a snoozer. I've watched other streamers playing through Chadley VR missions that they let pile up. It's literally like 2 or 3 hours worth of quote unquote content. It's just boring. It's like letting the dishes pile up. You know, you do a little here, a little there. It's fine, I guess. You still don't want to do it. And then if you let them pile up, you're there for hours doing it. Not literally hours doing the dishes, I would hope not. But you know what I mean. It's chores. It's literally chores. Now, don't get me wrong. I loved 1997 Final Fantasy VII. I loved Crisis Core. I loved Remake. I loved Integrate. I didn't go out of my way to play all of the spin-offs of 7, like Dirge, etc. It looked horrible, so I stayed away from it. But overall, I'd say that I'm pretty well educated on the Final Fantasy VII scene. I would even consider myself a fanboy to an extent, just not to an extreme, like, you know, some people on the internet. And I also like to be honest with myself. Rebirth isn't amazing. It's just not. I know it's a flavor thing, but as a video game itself, Rebirth is not amazing. Yet, I also recommend it for fans of the series. I do. There's plenty of good with character development and, well, character development. Hang on a second.
Coming at ya. Did I do good or did I do good?
That fucking voice sucks so bad. Sucks. It fucking sucks. I'm sorry. That sucks. Did I do good or did I do good? Stop. Go back to the old voice right now. God, I hate it. Now, jokes aside, the party banter between areas is very fun. From Barrett being a typical funny smartass to Yuffie being kind of a really cool character this time around, at least from the original 7 days. there's a lot of laughs and great moments to be had. These moments really suck you into the world of Rebirth, and it really makes you feel closer to the group that most of us grew up with. For me personally, this is one of the best parts of the game. I'm only going to show one example of this to not spoil too many moments like this, because there really are the true gems of the game to me.
Loads of parents are like that, but I told myself I'd be different. I'd never keep my little girl from flying. I don't want to clip her wings. I want her to soar. I hear you scoffing. You think I can't do it. You think I'll keep her all to myself.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what scares me. As much as I want to let her fly, I don't know if I'll be able to let go when the time comes. Maybe I'll panic, get in her way, hold her down, all to keep her safe. Oh, Marley, I wish you could be my baby girl forever. Oh, my sweet baby girl.
What now?
Your daddy? You silly daddy. He's gonna fail you. Oh, I can't let you go. I just can't.
Barrett,
I love
get your
Barrett.
shit together. Marlene's barely out of diapers. You've got time.
Right. I'm just getting worked up over nothing. Yeah, she won't be leaving me for a while.
Then again...
Hey,
Now, I understand that's not some comedy club hilarious banter going on there, but it's just nice. That right there gives the characters flavor. There's quite a bit of that sprinkled throughout the game, and honestly, for me, that's one of the better parts of Rebirth, just getting that connection to the colorful cast of characters in the game. It's really nice, especially if you're a fan of the older game as well. You're able to see a different new side to these characters, or more of a fleshed out side to these characters, and that's a really nice touch for these types of games to me. Next up, we're going to tackle dungeons. Dungeons are another part of Rebirth that I feel are great. Throughout the game, we have to deal with a handful of them. Most of the notable caves and such from the original game have been recast as full-fledged dungeons now, and for the most part, I think Square did a great job with them. Now, I won't go into much detail, but the gist of it is figure out some puzzles. Yes, sometimes mundane, Mako spill vacuum cleaning jobs at times. And collect actual treasures in the form of materia and weapon upgrades. Generally speaking, that's what you're going to get out of a dungeon. Pretty fun stuff. Not groundbreaking or anything, but pretty fun stuff. Now, the downside to these dungeons is they really overshadow the loudly outspoken open world of Rebirth. If the open world had more depth to it, like some dungeons, maybe it would have been cooler. But no, we're left with rounding up Moogles and listening to Chadley 100 too many times for each region. That's also to say that the dungeons themselves really aren't perfect. There's plenty of times where things feel a bit drawn out, but overall, without going into super detail, dungeons are what you expect. You go in, you get loot, you progress story, you get out, continue on. So for me, they're a win in my book. Next up is a quick one, visuals and sound. I mean, if you haven't noticed yet, this game is absolutely gorgeous. It does have its flaws, however. One of them being the weird lighting in the game. It actually makes no sense. I'm not really going to have like portions of the game to showcase for you here, but there's parts of the game where the lighting just becomes either way too dark or way too bright. And it's based off of your camera distance, so it's kind of weird like that in a way. But also, most of the game just looks better when it's more dimmed. I can't really put a finger on it, but the game just looks more washed out compared to Remake even at times. I don't know. I think both games have like a lighting issue that's kind of weird, but overall, the game is stunning. Like, it looks great still. The sound, the music. I've been playing music from Remake and Rebirth throughout this entire video, and I mean, you can kind of see for yourself. The music's 10 out of 10. There's no doubt about it. Like, the visuals, And the music, Final Fantasy is the standard as far as that's concerned in my book. The music and the visuals just are outstanding. They look great. There's no complaints for me there, except for the lighting, but yeah, that's a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but it looks great. Sounds great. In conclusion, my final thoughts on 7 Rebirth are this. It has me wanting less. And what I mean by that is less fluff, but more actual content. Take out 10 mini games and give us an optional dungeon with a challenge and some kind of special loot. Lower the amount of boring virtual reality fights. Don't get me wrong, some are cool, most are not. And just add a fleshed out non-checklist Ubisoft region. Like the open world, the exploration, the mini games, the side quests, the chocobo stuff, so on and so forth. All of that detracts so much from the actual game itself that it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Now, some of these are great. They add flavor to the world somewhat, but for the most part, you're just doing humdrum chores. It's not fun. Now, you can have some of this list, the open world exploration, mini games, etc. Just don't put so much into the game that it overshadows everything else. Optional or not, it's a giant tower of crap waiting to be played. Or not, and you just paid $70 for a piece of a game. Your choice, right? Square totally went for a variety and quantity over just flat out quality here, and it shows. Like, it very much shows. I'm sorry, but if parking segways and fishing for chickens with a box and chasing the same chores over and over again in every region is equal to fun for you, maybe you should play more video games. There's a whole world out there for you. I promise. This ain't it. Now, I would be lying to you if I said this wasn't a good game. It is a good game. It's also a very flawed game if you are a somewhat of a completionist. I feel like if you're here for the characters and the story, as long as you stick with specific side quest and story, there's a solid fun time to be had. Hell, you'll even enjoy some of the mini games, surely. I hated the amount of mini games and I thought it was full-on padding, but even I enjoyed a handful of them. Overall, now that we're past the honeymoon period for the game and more players are getting their hands on Rebirth and voicing some very, very much needed criticisms, the first few weeks of Rebirth, you would think this game was utter perfection. You really would. Let me be the one to tell you, especially with Final Fantasy games in particular, this fan base loves to lie about and fight tooth and nail for their games. Trust me, I've been around since the beginning. I've seen this fan base devolve into the joke that it is now. Just ask a group of fans what their favorite Final Fantasy game is and watch the fight spark. If we're being 100% honest with ourselves here, if you're a 7 fan, you're going to more than likely enjoy the game. If you're a JRPG or action RPG fan, there's a bit here for you, but other games just do it way better. It is most definitely not worth purchasing a PS5 to play, but if you already have a PS5, I would recommend it if you're a 7 fan, or if you're just clamoring for a new JRPG, ARPG to play because you finished everything else. Otherwise, there's far better out there. Don't be lied to. The game is definitely not some perfection made manifest. It's good, but it's not great. I hope you enjoyed my review of 7 Rebirth. As I said earlier, this is my first review of a game that I've done, so the formula isn't quite there for us yet. I've tried my best to be as honest as possible. I've just seen so many fanboy reviews over this. I wanted to get some pushback, some truth out there. As with any purchase, educate yourself further. Don't just take my word or others and decide. Take some real time. Even try out the demo for yourself. What I hate, you may love, and that's a glorious thing. So don't just take my word for it. Get some more education on the subject before you make a purchase. $70 doesn't come cheap these days, or $80, depending on where you're at. Regardless, I do hope that you found this review somewhat helpful and maybe even a little eye-opening. I'm going to be doing more reviews in the future. One over an actual open-world game called Dragon's Dogma 2 next. I also plan to do reviews for older games as well, as I really do enjoy playing retro games myself. We also post shorts of every game that we're currently streaming when funny moments happen. So if any of that interests you, please consider dropping a like and a subscribe. I would appreciate it. It helps small channels out immensely. I do have a bonus topic that I would like to discuss at the end here. And if you're an original Final Fantasy fan, I would love to hear your feedback on this. If you were here for the review only, I want to say thank you for watching, and I do hope to see you again in the future. Alright, so this photo has been going around a lot, and I would just like to address this. Graphically speaking, of course, a game in 2024 is going to look visually better than a game in 1997. Obvious. Let's dig a little bit deeper, though. I really want to open some eyes here. First, let's take the grasslands in Rebirth. What is there to do? Okay. Once you're outside of Calm, you're tasked with crossing the swamp to make your way to Junon. Cool. In Rebirth, there's a plethora of things to do. Grab some towers, do a Moogle roundup, do a mini game to catch a chocobo, dig with the chocobo, take a picture, chase some bandits. Sounds like a lot. You can do these side quests, all scripted and laid out in front of you, or you can just push the story, fight a big snake, move on Mithril Mine, yada yada. At the end of the day, the way that you attack Rebirth is essentially do the laid out optionals or push the story. There's two options right there. That's it. All right? Let's compare that to the original. Let's look at the original. Things you can do after Calm. Go to Chocobo Bills, grab a summon materia, summon or lure a chocobo and catch it and ride it across the swamp, dodging your big snake so you don't have to fight it. Or time your run across the swamp just right, make it without doing any of that, and you just skip that whole portion, right? Or you can try to fight the snake and probably die. Or you can go past the snake, get through the Mithril Mines, grind your materia up a little bit to get level 2 spells, particularly fire and elemental, equip this on one character who has enemy skill materia, make sure that they have enough health to survive beta from Midgard Somer, the big snake, go fight the damn snake, hope that the character with elemental fire enemy skill materia doesn't get swung out of the fight, have beta be used on said character, learn beta, and absolutely enjoy the rest of your first disc because you've essentially outplayed the system. Feels good, doesn't it? Feels good to feel smart, doesn't it? Now let's not get started on how you can steal a hard edge from Shinra Tower that you can't find until Gungaga, or an early game carbon bangle, for instance, that you can steal as well. My point is, if you try hard enough, there's so much more that you can do in the original game that's not on rails and snoozy like with Rebirth. Now, to each their own. I understand that Square wanted to present Rebirth in an easy-to-enjoy manner versus Square of old having some broken stuff in their game if players tried hard enough. I personally enjoy both in certain aspects, and I despise both in certain other aspects. Let's not act like the original 7 was bland. Like, graphically, yeah, of course, it's nearly 30 years old at this point. But content-wise, the game arguably had more to do. And it wasn't parking segways. Well, regardless, that's my rant on this photo that I've seen passing the rounds of Twitter space and everything else. Everyone just wants to talk about how the new game is so much better. I could care less, honestly, but I did want to point this out and kind of just take a jab at it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.